New Year, same me. Fun fact, did you know that South Korea has the most fried chicken restaurants in the world? Almost 100,000 Korean fried chicken restaurants. That's almost one KFC per 500 people. That's pretty good. Why can't we have that? I think that would make for a better society, don't you? Well, we can. You can. One KFC per one person, you, in your own kitchen. Korean fried chicken, the true KFC. And what I believe to be the most superior-est of the fried chicken. And if you don't believe me, make it yourself. So of course we're gonna need some chicken. You could do a whole chicken, just wings, just thighs. But I got here a bunch of drumsticks. They were on sale. So there's 4 pounds here. We're gonna start off with some salt. Typically, we usually do half a teaspoon of kosher salt per pound of meat, but since we are going to be saucing these, we're gonna cut that in half. So for each pound, there's gonna be a quarter teaspoon of kosher salt, which will make this 1 teaspoon. Then we'll get about a teaspoon of black pepper. Then in a separate bowl, we're gonna crack 4 eggs. We'll break our eggs up, whisk them all together first, pour it into our chicken, and then we need to mix everything really well. Next, we're gonna use a cup of potato starch. Realistically, you could use any type of starch, just that with potato starch, it could fry a little bit hotter than cornstarch, performs a little bit better. You could use cornstarch, you could use tapioca starch, but tapioca starch would probably be at the bottom of the tier list of starches to fry with. So ideally, potato starch or cornstarch. Then we're gonna get half a cup of wheat flour here. I'm using wheat flour because I like my chicken crusty, but you could use rice flour if you're looking for more of a thin crust or a mixture of both. Find out what you like. And lastly, we're gonna get a teaspoon of baking soda. This is another secret to get super crispy fried chicken. Baking soda creates tiny bubbles and blisters when you fry it, breaking up our batter, which leads to a crispier, lighter crust for our chicken. Next, we need to do our first fry. We will be double frying this because the double fry is what makes this the superior fried chicken. Join the double fry game, won't you? We'll be meeting over there. So first, we're gonna need our deep frying vessel of choice. It's been preheating. We're gonna get some oil in. We're gonna preheat our oil to 320 and try to keep it there when we fry for our first fry. Anywhere between 300 to 320 is a good amount. And using one of these thermometers to help gauge where our oil is at helps a ton. All right, so our oil is preheated and we're ready for our first fry. Again, we wanna keep our oil around 300 to 320 Fahrenheit. So however many pieces of chicken you could fit in without your temperatures dropping too low is the ideal amount. So with the first fry, we're basically par cooking our chicken at a lower temp. Since I'm using drumsticks here, and I suggest cooking these to about 175 Fahrenheit. If you have thighs, I'd go 185, wings 165, or chicken breast 150. I believe these to be the optimal internal temperature ranges for each piece for the best flavor and best texture, but you do you. Alright, so we can see this one is exactly where I want it, right to the bone. I'm going to pull these out and let these drain completely. So we got our first batch done, and of course, obviously, we're going to need to finish the rest. So we'll go ahead and finish frying the rest of these. But when we're completely done our first fry, we want to set these on our wire rack of some sort to let all the oil drain, any of the moisture to drain off. So by the time it cools off and we're ready for our second fry, any unnecessary moisture that will stop it from being crispy will most likely be gone. So that when we do our second fry, at a higher temperature, we'll be able to keep this crispy, having as little moisture in it as much as we could possibly have. But also another really great reason why you should be double frying is it really helps with time management. For these 6 pieces of drumsticks, that took about 15 minutes or so. Wasn't really keeping track. But we still got about another 2 to 3 batches left. But when we go for our second fry, we only need to be frying these for about 2 minutes, which should help a lot with timing your dinner service. So now our oil is back to being preheated. Keep our oil as clean as possible. And then we'll finish off the rest of our chicken. Alright, so while we finish off our first fry and then letting our chickens cool completely, we need to make ourselves some Korean pickled radish. I think it's called chicken moo? Chicken mew? I don't know, I'm not Korean. Because you can't have some KFC without some KPR. That's not going to be a thing. So of course you're going to need some Korean radish. But this is not Korean radish because they don't sell Korean radish around these neck of the woods. This is a daikon, which is basically the same thing. Probably a little bit less crunchier, but it's just pickles. By the way, when I say pickles, you probably think of pickled cucumbers, right? Why is that? Pickles, pickling, it's a technique, a liquid, an art form. Why do cucumbers get all the clout? Anyway, I digress. So first, we're gonna start by peeling our daikon. Cut off the ends, cut this one way lengthwise, slice them into slices. Now you can go with the classic cube shape if you'd like, but I like mine thin like this. Just know that the thicker they are, the more time they'll need to take in the brine. And so for our brine, we're gonna need 1.5 cups of water, and then 1.5 cups of vinegar. I'm using just white vinegar here for a clean taste. You can use rice vinegar if you want more of a ricier taste. Then 1/2 cup of sugar, and lastly a tablespoon of kosher salt. If you want to add any other flavors like garlic, turmeric to make it yellow, peppercorns or bay leaves, feel free to do so. But I want these as simple and super clean pickles, pickled daikon. So at this point, normally the internet will tell you you need to put this in a pot and boil it, but just microwave it. So much easier. All you need to do is get it close to boiling or hot enough so that the sugar and the salt and the vinegar can all mix together really well. So that's what we're gonna do. All right, so we got our water at basically boiling temp. Quickly whisk. Whew. And we'll get our radish in here. This is enough for about 1 pound of our radish. Probably gonna need to do this in 2 containers. Then we'll pour this in. And make sure everything's submerged fully. And basically that's it. We'll let these cool off completely. And by the time that they've cooled off, that should be pickled enough. And we'll throw them in the fridge because you want to serve these cold. But again, these will probably taste the best by tomorrow. So if you want to make these in advance, probably the better bet. You want to make sure these are fully submerged. Quick little trick you could do. Get some saran wrap. Kind of push that down here. Just provide some surface tension to keep our radishes submerged. That should work. So we'll put this aside, let these cool off. And hopefully by half an hour and an hour, they should be pickled enough. And then we'll throw them in the fridge after that. Next, we're gonna need to make our sauces. Now there are a ton of variations for Korean fried chicken, but I wanna focus in on 2 of them. The first one isn't very common, at least I don't think. It's called Padak. Padak? Again, I'm not Korean, sue me. Basically, it's this garlic, soy sauce, mustard sauce, served with a bunch of green onions on top of it. Complement each other very well. Spring onion Korean fried chicken is how I was introduced to it. So first is the green onion. First we're gonna need to cut these into thin strips. Again, if you have one of these, forgot what it's called, but it helps cut onions into super thin strips without needing to ruin your life in your hands. That's all, is just one of these. And just like that, cut off the end. And now we got some nice long strips. And if you want them smaller, cut through it a few times. And we'll get this all into a plate or a bowl. And we're gonna soak this in cold water for at least 10 minutes, and then we'll dry them. By soaking them, it removes that spicy onion flavor, and it gives us more of a mild onion taste. And we'll put this aside. Then for the actual sauce, we're gonna need 4 garlic cloves crushed, 1 tablespoon of sugar, 3 tablespoons of soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of mirin, 1 tablespoon of rice vinegar, then 1 tablespoon of Dijon mustard. Mix that together so everything gets mixed together and our sugar gets dissolved. And this should be good for 2 pounds of our chicken. So that's it for this sauce. All we need to do at the end is toss it in with our finished fried chicken. Next, for our second sauce, we're gonna go with the classic spicy sweet Gochujang Sauce, which we're gonna start off again with 4 cloves of crushed garlic, 1/4 cup of Gochujang Sauce. I have this brand here, can't read. Then we'll need a tablespoon of brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of mirin, 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar, 2 tablespoons of honey, then 3 tablespoons of ketchup, believe it or not. Now this sauce we are going to need to finish on the stove and then toss it with our chicken when it's done there. But now it's time to finish off our chicken with our second fry. So for our second fry, once all of our chicken is finished and it's cooled off, hopefully all the moisture has been able to kind of run itself off. We're gonna get our oil to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. Then we're gonna go for our second fry for about 2 minutes, and that's it. And just for some comparison's sake, you could see how our chicken after the first fry isn't all that crispy, if any at all at this point. But you'll see after we put our second fry, some magic happens. So here we go. And while we're doing our second fry, we can start to finish that gochujang sauce. All right, it's been 2 minutes. We'll yank these out, and then we'll put our next batch in. So for our sauce, ideally in a non-stick skillet at medium heat, we're gonna get it all into there. And then we'll keep stirring and mixing until this becomes a thick sauce. All right, our last batch. All right, once our sauce thickens up like this, you can see when we scrape it, it stays nice and thick. We'll turn off our heat. All right, so here we are with our second fry. It's kind of hard to show, but the difference between before the second fry and now post second fry, it's remarkable. And especially if you're making anything where you're gonna sauce them afterwards, this is the way to go. Now that our sauce is done, we are gonna grab half of our chicken and then we're gonna toss it into our gochujang sauce. Just wanna make sure you get everything coated. Be gentle not to break the crust on your chicken. Piece broke off, but so once everything is tossed nice and evenly, we're gonna garnish them with some sesame seeds because these always look better and taste better with some sesame seeds. And for some extra wow factor, some chopped green onions because everything needs a little bit of green. And that's it for our gochujang sauce Korean fried chicken. And let's finish off with our Padak. So we got the rest of our chicken here, and all we need to do is toss it. And with our Padak sauce, our sauce, we're gonna toss them in. Let's gently mix it. Let's add a little bit of black sesame seeds on this one for some contrast. Plate. And then finally, top it off with your green onion. No kidding. That's how it's served. Take a bite of your chicken, a big bite of green onions. And lastly, we got our KPR. All right, but how do these taste? Let's start with our spring onion. Ooh, what a mess. Wow. We got to compare those. So. That really balances things out. All right, so between the two, I don't know. These, you eat these together, they're really good. Obviously this one being spicy, sweet, savory, it's got it all. This one on the more mild side with, I don't know, that mustard just does something. I don't know how to explain it. You just gotta make it. You always gotta cut that down with some Korean pickled radish. It really helps cut the flavor. Just need some beer now. But I don't really drink any beer, so maybe I'll just have more chicken. So there it is. Hopefully I've given you some basic tools to start your own Korean fried chicken restaurant. I clearly have no idea what it takes to run a restaurant. But maybe you could have your own KFC stand in front of your house, you know, make your neighborhood a better place. Or maybe just keep your KFC restaurant all to yourself. Because I know I am.